Doesn't Facebook compete with the likes of, say, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and other social media sites? No. Social media sites do not compete with each other. This is a crude understanding of thinking that social media is like an industry where all the social media sites are competing with each other. This is not the case. They provide very different types of media. They provide very different experiences. The fact that social media companies are all lumped together is just a consequence of kind of an outdated understanding where, oh, everything that's on the internet is the same. No, the internet provides a huge variety of different types of content that are very different. So instead of thinking of the term social media as a vague banner like an industry, it is better to think of a social media not as an arena between companies, but as a quality that some websites have wherein this network effect is present. These sites all differentiate themselves by providing fundamentally different services. You might as well call each website, like Facebook, Twitter, and so on, you might as well call each of them in an industry of the size of one. Facebook is for personal real identity. Twitter is for sharing thoughts widely. Tumblr is for blog-like content and peculiar interests. Instagram is a tricky case. It's for personal branding. And all these sites that might seem similar, and I could go down the list, they all differentiate themselves by a variety of mechanisms. So, to go back to the issue of free speech, the issue is broader than free speech. The issue is that social media companies can do whatever they want and not be subject to normal competitive pressures. And if you think of a company like Facebook, they almost can't allow complete free speech on Facebook because if someone creates content on Facebook and they don't ban it, it almost implies that they're okay with the fact that people put the content on Facebook, which is perverse. It's perverse that one website, one company gets to decide what people are allowed to say, what kind of content is allowed. It would be better if these companies didn't even get the option. It wasn't even possible for them to remove content, to censor. This is what it would be like under a decentralized social media. Now, it gets all worse than what I've said. Whatever social media sites exist are almost guaranteed to pander to political correctness because it is the most powerful ideologies of our time. It's practically a religion. And also, read the article by Nassim Nicholas Taleb about the intolerance of certain groups. When something gets big enough, it will inevitably succumb to certain social pressures. So, what are the solutions? As far as solutions, I can really only see two: the anti libertarian solution and the libertarian solution. The anti libertarian solution is for the government to pass regulations to forbid censorship by social media companies. Obviously, this option should be pursued with caution. The morality of coercing private businesses aside, government regulations can sometimes do the opposite of what you want them to do. It sets a bad precedent and creates just another layer of decision making subject to the whims of the public. Do you really think that the government can get this right? Maybe they can in a narrow capacity, but it's risky because the government can just do the opposite of what we want them to do in this situation. There are people who are advocating that the government step in and force social media companies to censor more. So it seems like the only solution is what I'm calling the libertarian solution. This is what is being pursued by Urbit, for example, assuming that that will ever have something that comes to a fruition. The libertarian solution is to create a decentralized standard in social media, like email, but for publicly shared content. In a, in this case, you would have different social media services, just like how you have Yahoo, and Gmail, and all these are different email services that provide email, but they can all talk to each other. You can talk to Yahoo through Google, or Google Gmail through Yahoo. So through this way, imagine if you had that, but for public-facing content. So it would be decentralized control, like we have in blogs or podcasts, but for content that is more like Twitter or Facebook. In this case, the network externality is shared between all companies. They will be able to cater to some specific theme, maybe, but they will all talk, quote unquote, to each other. Different decentralized systems can be developed for different types of services, but the user will be able to tailor exactly what type of content they want. There have been attempts at this in the past, but not quite successful, because both options that I've listed, especially the latter, would be unbelievably difficult to pull off. The latter option, the decentralized social media, would not require political action, but you would have to set up the system to prevent each service from excluding others from the benefit of the network effects. Of course, none of that is going to be very convincing to you if you don't believe that we should have free speech in the first place. But who believes that? Quite a lot of people. Most millennials, probably. Anyone who uses the term hate speech, except to criticize it, of course. It's impressive how often I hear people say that they're for free speech, but we need to make a distinction. Hate speech isn't free speech. Well, yes, it is. And I would go further to say that the term hate speech shouldn't even exist. All it does is confuse people and turn them away from free speech. It's an instance of semantic activism. It's a propaganda term. Of course, it's true that I am okay with banning certain language, but that's a red herring. I'm okay with banning incitements to violence, for example. But my definition of speech is, in this context, is the spreading of one's opinion. I don't think that threats of violence constitute speech in the first place, because threats of violence aren't really spreading of one's opinion. So telling someone to commit murder, I do not believe falls under the banner of free speech in this regard. But suffice it to say that I believe the ability to transact opinions is a fundamental right of and should rest with the people. And that also implies the right to listen to other viewpoints. And I do not believe that the government has the right to decide what is and is not acceptable speech. Only the people have that right.